Welcome to Moms of the Lou podcast, hosted by and recorded for St. Louis moms. Grab your laundry basket, kick your feet up for nap time, or head out the door for pickup and spend a little time catching up with your favorite St. Louis moms. Hosted by a fellow St. Louis mom, Rebecca Coast, let's dive into our discussion today. This episode of Moms of the Lou is brought to you by our partner, Foss Swim School. All right, St. Louis moms, welcome back to another episode of Moms of the Lou. I am so excited today to be joined by local mom, a St. Louis mom contributor, Colleen Fitzsimmons-Wiviott. Welcome, Colleen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So excited to be chatting with you today about all things St. Louis and all things in specific art.
Yes.
So you are a trained art educator.
I am.
But first of all, let's talk about a little of your story. So are you a St. Louis native? Are you a transplant?
I am. I was born in St. Louis, grew up in South City, spent a long time, in St. Louis, had a wonderful childhood here. Like a lot of St. Louis people, I moved away for a while and lived on the East Coast, and then came back about 8 years ago and now have 2 kids. And we live in Clayton now, and we love it. It's such a great place to have a family. So it's been fun to get to know the city again as an adult and as a mom.
As a mom, yeah.
It's so different than when I was a teenager and things felt a little more not as fun. But now as a parent and as an adult, I love living here. I think the city has so much to offer.
Yeah.
So it's been fun to come back.
I think I echo that sentiment that it feels so different to be here as a mom versus like a single person.
Yes.
Because you're just finding out things that you never knew existed.
That's
or
so true.
even that you really cared about. Honestly,
right,
when you're in your 20s.
Yeah. Or when you're a teenager and you're like, everything feels boring and
Right.
St. Louis,
St.
I
Louis.
need to move away. But
Yeah.
then you come back and you're like, wow, this is a great city and it's fun.
Yeah. It does feel like all roads kind of lead back to St. Louis,
Yes.
for families and just, good quality of life.
Yeah.
And What were you doing on the East Coast?
So I moved away for college. I went to GW in Washington, D.C. And, I like to backtrack because my story does start with the St. Louis Art Museum. When I was a high school student here, I've always been interested in the arts. I've always been interested in education. And I saw a job opportunity when I was in high school to work at the art museum. Wow. It's called their teen assistant program. They still have it today. And it's such a cool program because my job was to lead tours and art activities for community groups coming in for the summer months. And I fell in love with it. I had never thought about museum education. I had never really thought about informal education like that. I thought maybe I wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't feel like the classroom was the right fit for me. And so when I saw this opportunity, I just loved it. So I did that for many years. Even when I went away to college, I would come back in the summer and work there. Found many great mentors there who I still keep in touch with today. And that was kind of my path. I said, I want to be a museum educator and art educator. So I went away to school with that idea in my head. Went to graduate school in New York for museum education and got to work at museums there.
Wow.
And then moved back here and started working at the St. Louis Art Museum as a young professional, which was like really full circle because I was a high school student there once.
That is amazing. So this program still exists.
Still exists.
Okay. So when, for moms who are listening who might have teens who are interested in this, how would they find out about it? How would they throw their hat in the ring?
Sure. They usually post about the job opportunity in like the winter, spring months when they're looking for new teens. It's such a cool opportunity. It's a paid job.
Wow.
And it's a really like professional development opportunity as well. I mean, I got to learn from professional museum educators how to talk about works of art with children, how to set up an art making experience, how to talk to the public. That was a new experience for me as well.
The public.
And you have a badge on, someone's going to ask you a question about where the bathroom is and do I have to pay for this? This museum's free? Like what?
Yeah.
So it was such a very eye-opening and developing experience for me as a young adult. But yeah, it's still around. It's such a wonderful program. And I feel like there are many other programs like that in St. Louis at other institutions, like teen work options. And like you never know, it could be such a door into exploring something that you might want to do for your profession. So
great. And if not, just great, a great opportunity for a teen,
absolutely.
just self-development. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So you come back to St. Louis, you're working at the art museum, and then become a mom.
And then I became a mom. And my older son was born in 2019. And my job at the museum, I loved my work there. I also had to work a lot of nights and weekends, and that was becoming a challenge.
Yeah.
So, I started to work part-time at the museum, and then COVID happened. And I had a lot of interesting opportunities to do virtual learning opportunities with the museum, and then kind of decided that I was ready to move on to something else. So I started my own kind of freelance business called Start With Art, and have had the opportunity to work with a lot of really cool small businesses and organizations in St. Louis to offer art making classes. And I really started to specialize in early childhood and working with very young artists. I started to do that when I was working in New York. I got to develop a program at a museum for toddlers.
Oh, wow.
And just loved that, and have kind of focused my work on exposing very young artists to art making and really solidifying them as the artists that they are. So that's something I'm really passionate about. But
I love that. I feel like that's such a genius idea to focus on children, because so much happens in childhood, that sticks with you for the rest of your life,
So true.
Like even if they don't become a professional artist, maybe you're instilling something in them that they'll just always love.
Right. And something that, I always like in the work that I do, I get to talk to a lot of moms and parents, and also be a resource to them, which I really enjoy. And I always tell them, like, I don't expect your child to become a practicing working artist with this. Like, the goal is that they're developing a lot of skills that they need in many aspects of their life. Like, we know that art making promotes neural development, critical thinking, problem solving, helps with fine motor skills. So like, art making is doing so much for your child's just well-being and development, aside from it being just a really fun activity that you can do with them and is something to do that's away from screens or, whatever it may be. So, I really love that. That part of the work is also helping parents figure this out too.
That's awesome. Okay. So if you are a self-admitted OCD mom like I am, that gets stressed about mess.
Yes.
What are some of your top tips for parents to help your kids get creative at home, try their hand at art, but also not make a huge mess for you?
Sure.
And maybe that's inevitable, right?
Right. And, this is a very common feeling. Like, I feel like people always talk to me about this very sheepishly. They say, I really want to make art with my kids, but like, I hate the mess.
Yeah.
Like, how do I get rid of it? This is a very common feeling. And I get it. Like, kids are messy. They just are. And art making is messy. And so what I always tell parents is you need to make yourself comfortable first.
Yeah.
Because if you are uncomfortable, your child is going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So like, what can you do to make this a fun experience for everyone? So some things that I suggest are like, do you have a drop cloth or like an old sheet that you can put down on the floor? Like, let's protect the floors. I get it. Like, we all spend a lot of time cleaning up our homes. Like, we don't need paint splattered all over the place. Like, put a drop cloth down. Do you have like trays? Do you have a tablecloth you can put down? Do you have, I love to use like aprons and old t-shirts on my kids so you can protect their clothing. Or my favorite tip, can you go outside?
Yeah.
Like, do this art project outside.
Yes,
like,
outside.
And, and there's benefits to that as well, because then we can bring in natural materials into our art making experience, or we can get inspired by what we're looking at outside. So I always tell parents, like, you get comfortable and then do it. Like, if you don't, like, I have a thing, I don't use glitter. I hate glitter. It's messy. It's not good for the environment. So like, I don't do it.
That would be a hard pass for me.
And
no
like,
glitter.
And like, that's okay. You know, like if you have these lines that you cannot cross, like that's fine. You don't need to cross those lines. But I do want parents to feel comfortable when their kid is making art. So like do those things that you need to do. Like I said, I love trays. Like IKEA has these amazing like lunch trays that are 99 cents. I have like a stack of like 20 in my house because, oh, you want to make a painting? You want to make like, let's put on a tray.
Yeah.
Because then we can take the tray away.
Yes.
And that's great.
Absolutely.
We can take the tray away. I love rolling carts. You know, parents ask me a lot about like, how accessible should my art materials be? Where should I keep them?
Yes.
And, you know, for me, my kids do have access to art materials when they want it. It's in a low cabinet. Is the paint in there? No. But are collage materials in there? Are drawing materials in there? Is glue sticks in there? Like, yes. So like, again, you need to feel comfortable with what your kids have access to. But like rolling carts are great because you can roll it into your space where you're making art and then you can roll it away. And it can be tucked away for another time. So I think it's this balance of keeping things accessible, making it so that they can have their creative process, but in a more controlled way.
Yeah.
Because yes, we also need to keep our sanity and we need to make sure that you feel comfortable too. Because like I said, if you have that anxiety, your kid is going to sense that. Definitely. And that's going to affect their experience in creating and hinder it really.
And now let's have a word from our episode sponsor, Foss Swim School. At Foss, swim lessons are more than strokes and kicks. They're about building water safety, confidence, and love of water that lasts a lifetime. Whether your kiddo is just getting started or looking to level up their skills, Foss Swim School meets them where they are and makes learning fun. With flexible scheduling and makeup lessons now available, it's easier than ever to fit swim lessons into your family's routine. Find the class that fits your family or schedule your free preview lesson today at fossswimschool.com.
So
that's a great, I didn't even think about that, the accessibility, because I think that's something for me, like when my kids just have free access to like markers and crayons and things like that, then that's where, or the all-time triggering, like, oh, I found a Sharpie with no lid.
Sure.
And I'm like, where is the lid?
Happened?
What has happened?
Yes.
So I do think that there is some comfort in that idea of maybe having a designated place.
Yes.
And even a designated time maybe. But, you know, without limiting them. I don't know.
Right. Of course. And, you know, and this is going to change as they develop into different ages. Like I have a 6-year-old and an almost 3-year-old. And my 3-year-old, you know, he needs a little more structure. Yeah. You know, he can't have access to the markers. We just, you know, he just drew on the wall the other day and like, that's okay.
Yep.
It happens.
Yeah.
But my 6-year-old, he, you know, we've gone through so much of how do we take care of materials? How do we respect those materials? Yeah. And so he knows he can have access to that cabinet of stuff and he knows he can get a tray out, can put his stuff on the tray, work at the table, put it away. Yeah. So I think there is a lot of, you know, steps to go through that I know when you're in it with the 2 and the 3-year-olds and you really want them to make stuff, but it feels like this is impossible. Yeah. It will change and it will continue. That process will continue to develop. So, you know, I don't want people to feel like it will always be markers on the wall. Yeah. It won't always be like that.
But Colleen, this is making me think maybe we need like a mom's guide to products to get the stains off the wall.
Oh, that's so true. That would be a fun post.
Yeah. Because I do remember once there being Sharpie on our hardwood floor. And I think I ended up using rubbing alcohol maybe.
There's so
like
many
a little
tricks
bit.
that
I don't know.
Have. Yeah, rubbing alcohol, you know, like acetone. There's many little tricks. And then that's also what I would say is like, you know, pick your materials very carefully. Like I love washable, like that Crayola washable paint is amazing. It comes out of everything. Yeah. Those ultra clean Crayola markers. Yeah. You spray water on them, they're gone. So like there are some really cool products out there that I think also will aid in parents feeling more comfortable creating because it is stuff that is very water soluble and just comes out of everything.
Totally.
So you can have a little bit more ease in working with messy art materials.
Yes. Okay, well, so you are a mom of two.
Yes.
So St. Louis has no shortage of awesome places to go to
Hmm.
see art and have art experiences.
Yeah.
So where do you guys like to go?
Oh, we love going to museums. My kids have been going to museums since they were babies.
Oh,
And we're so lucky here in St. Louis because so many of them are free.
yes.
And like, I always like, I feel like there are still people that live here and have lived here that still don't know
Yeah.
that like the art museum is free. You
Free.
can walk
Yeah.
in and not spend $1 while
Hmm.
you're there, which is amazing. And it's amazing for families because, I know sometimes when we travel to other cities and we want to go to the museum, you've spent whatever it is, $25 a person to get
Yes.
into this museum. You're going to get your money's worth, right? We're going to be there all day. We're going to see
Yes.
everything. And that's not necessarily the best experience for a child and
Yeah.
for your family.
Hmm.
And so I love to tell people when you go to the museum here, like spend 30 minutes, spend an
Yeah.
hour. That's really all your kids need
Hmm.
to get that experience without it becoming a situation that isn't comfortable for them.
Yeah.
And, museums are spaces that are different and it's a
Hmm.
learned experience of how to engage in those spaces. Like there are special rules. We can't touch the art. We
Right.
can't, it's not a running place.
Right.
Our voices need to be at a different level.
Yeah.
But there are so many great, like we love going to the art museum. I also love to tell families about the Contemporary Art Museum
Hmm.
and the Pulitzer Arts Foundation because they're right next door to each other.
Okay.
They're both also free in the Grand Center Art District. And it's really cool to get to go to both.
Yeah.
And they also have a really cool, the Pulitzer has a park experience across the street. So it's really fun to get to kind of experience all three of those spaces together. And because they're showing more contemporary artwork, which I know sometimes parents feel a little nervous about because it's a little different. What's the
Hmm.
content going to be like? And I
Yeah.
always say like check the website before
Yeah.
you go to see if it's something you're comfortable with.
Hmm.
But I love showing contemporary art to my children because it's something that's usually very conceptual. Oftentimes it's, big scale art that's so
Yeah.
exciting for kids to see.
Uh-huh.
The Pulitzer has this amazing sculpture by Richard Serra that you can walk in. And
Wow.
it's a big steel structure. And it's just so cool to see kids experience art
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
because it just provides that moment of wonder and
Hmm.
amazement, which I think is what we want for our kids to feel
Right.
excited and what could this be and
Hmm.
spark that imagination. So
Yeah.
those are three that we really love going to.
Okay.
But I mean, I also love going to, all of the really cool like parks and gardens that
Hmm.
we have here and like bring a sketchbook with you. Like we love to go to
Yeah.
the botanical garden or like Shaw
Yeah.
Nature Reserve. And those are really cool to kind of spark, I think, creativity as
Yeah.
well.
What about events? Are there any
Oh, there's so
art
many great
events that
arts
you like?
festivals.
Yeah.
I mean, we love, we always go to the International Festival
Hmm.
every year in Tower Grove Park.
Yeah.
That's such a cool one to see, not just like visual art, but also performing arts,
Yes.
which I think there's so many great performing arts
Yes.
festivals and things happening.
Yeah.
Uh, we love to go to Circus Flora, which I feel like
Hmm.
people don't really think about, but like that's a performing art as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Visual art. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like.
I'm really excited about the Shakespeare Festival
Hmm.
partnering with the zoo for their
Yeah.
children's performance this year. And then we also love Tower Grove Park always does a children's performance
Hmm.
series on Fridays in the park that's free, and like that's another great way to see really cool performing arts
Very
as
cool.
well. And so I think that's always important to help our children recognize that these are, artists as well that are
Yes.
singing and performing and puppetry. Like these are all really,
Yeah.
important disciplines as well, aside from the visual arts.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
we love to do those things too.
That's very cool. And I know we've got also some great art festivals,
Yeah.
that happen, like the
Clayton Art Festival, Webster Arts
Yeah.
Festival, and those are really fun too because they all of them have, areas where kids can do art making on their own
Hmm.
that are sponsored by, usually artist institutions here in
Yeah.
the city. So that's always
Very
a really fun
cool.
way too.
So as we wrap up, so you mentioned the teen program at the
Hmm.
art museum. Are there any other opportunities locally that, if a mom notices maybe she does have a child who really does have an interest in art and wants to
Yeah.
go a little bit deeper?
Sure.
Any
I mean,
recommendations?
yeah, there's great organizations that are doing really cool classes here. Craft Alliance is one that I always recommend. They do some really cool things. St. Louis Artworks, they work with a lot of teens and young adults to do kind of arts apprenticeships.
Oh, cool.
Which is really cool, where, those students get to work with practicing artists here in the city. And so those are two that I always recommend. And the museums, each museum has, family programs that they're doing. The Contemporary Art Museum always has a family day every month. They also have their own teen program that's really cool. Yeah. So yeah, I would say just like do some searching and look around, because our arts organizations are really great about engaging the public from all ages. The museums have programs for the very littlest ones up through adults. Yeah. And I would say like check them out for yourself too. There's always really cool adult classes and lectures and things happening in our city. It's a really vibrant arts scene here, with artists doing cool things and public art being made. So there's so much to check out. I feel like for every member of your family, which is, I think that's a great sentiment for the arts, is they can really bring people together. And I think they can bring your family together, because I think there's something that anyone in your family, regardless of what age, there's something to enjoy. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been so much fun, Colleen. So if you want to connect with Colleen, she's got a great page on Instagram. Start with Art.
STL.
Yeah. Start with Art, STL, one word. We'll link it in our show notes. Yeah. Colleen's also written some great pieces for St. Louis Mom about getting your kiddos started with art, different products, different ways to stock your space, things like that. So we'll be sure to include those links too. But yeah, connect with her. She's always got really fun posts and prompts on ways that your kids can be creative at home. And so give her a follow.
Thank you. Yes. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. Okay. Thank you, St. Louis Moms. We'll catch you on our next episode. This episode was brought to you by our partner at Foss Swim School. Thanks for listening to Moms of the Lou. We hope it encouraged you and put a pep in your step and helped you get to know our community a little bit better. Be sure to find us on Instagram, @ST_Louis_mom. You can find us on Facebook, St. Louis Mom. You can find us on our website, www.stlouismom.com. In case nobody else tells you today, you're a great mom and you're doing a great job. Chat with you next time.